Assalamualaikum, my name is Aida Amira binti Arshad and I am going to present about the financial ratio. The first ratio is the liquidity ratio. The purpose of liquidity ratio is used to determine a debtor's capacity to repay current debt commitments without having to raise additional funds. Under the liquidity ratio, we have current ratio. The purpose of the current ratio that measure a company's ability to pay short-term obligation or those due within 1 year. The current ratio for the Hikmat Bati Berhad is 2 times and the industry average is 2.1 times. Hikmat Bati Berhad's current ratio is slightly lower than industry average. This may indicate a higher risk of distress or default. To improve the current ratio is by reducing current liabilities on the business. Next is a quick ratio. The purpose of the quick ratio is to measure a company's capacity to pay its current liabilities. The quick ratio for Hikmat Bati Berhad is 1.18 times, then industry average is 0.9 times. Hikmat Bati Berhad's quick ratio is slightly higher than industry average. This shows the better a company's liquidity and financial health. If a company gets a lower quick ratio than industry average, then it can improve the quick ratio by improving the collection period.
Hi, my name is Nur Amira binti Syabiti Madum and I'm going to present about assets management ratios. Purpose of assets management ratio is asset management ratios measure how effectively the firm is managing its asset in order to generate sales. There are 4 assets management ratios which are inventory turnover ratio, average collection period, non-current asset turnover ratio and total assets turnover ratio. Purpose of inventory ratio is a useful metric for determining how successfully a firm converts its inventory into revenue. Here are the steps to calculate it. Based on comparison, this shows that Hikmat Bati Berhad tends to point to strong sales. Hence, higher ratio can indicate insufficient inventories on hand. Improve the inventory turnover ratio by increasing inventories so the inventories become sufficient. Next, the purpose of average collection period is to ensure that they have funds to satisfy their financial responsibilities. This is how to calculate. And based on comparison, this shows that it is bad for the company performance because it is hard to collect its receivable. The way to improve Hikmat Bati Berhad average collection period is to decrease the account receivables. So it indicates that a business can efficiently collect its receivables. Other than that, the purpose of non-current assets turnover ratio is to calculate the revenue earned per unit of non-current assets over the course of a year. This is how to calculate it. And based on comparison, this shows that the business is not using its non-current assets efficiently. It can improve by using the non-current assets efficiently. Last but not least, the purpose of total assets turnover ratio is to measure of how well a corporation uses its asset to create money. This is the calculation. And based on comparison, this shows that the lower the total assets turnover ratio, the bad company is performing because lower ratio shows that the firm did not generate more revenue per dollar of assets. They are less valuable. It can improve by increasing total assets.
The next ratio is a leverage ratio. The purpose of leverage ratio is used to measure the relative level of debt a company has accumulated. Under the leverage ratio, we have a debt ratio. The purpose of the debt ratio is to show a company's ability to pay off its liability with its asset. The debt ratio for Hikmat Bati Berhad is 30.36%. The industry average is 40%. Hikmat Bati Berhad debt ratio is slightly lower than industry average. This means a more stable company with longevity potential because a company with a lower ratio also has less total debt. If company have a high debt ratio, they can improve by avoiding taking on more debt. Is a debt equity ratio. The purpose of the debt equity ratio may be used to determine how much leverage a business has. The debt equity ratio for Hikmat Bati Berhad is 58.62%, then industry average is 60%. Hikmat Bati Berhad debt equity ratio is slightly lower than industry average. A low ratio means a lower risk of loan default. If a company have a higher debt equity ratio than industry average, they can improve by increasing profitability. Next is time interest earned. The purpose of the time interest earned indicates its ability to pay its debt. Time interest earned for Hikmat Bati Berhad is 6.7 times. For the industry average is 7 times. This is show that Hikmat Bati Berhad is slightly lower than industry average. To improve time interest earned is paying down debt.
Hi, I'm Nur Alisa and I'm going to talk about profitability ratio.
The purpose of profitability ratio is to look at how much profit the firm generates from sales or from its capital asset. The purpose of the gross profit margin is used to evaluate a company's financial health by calculating the money left over after subtracting the cost of goods sold from product sales. A higher ratio means that a company can make a reasonable profit on sales. Other than that, investors tend to pay more for a company with higher gross profit. The purpose of the operating profit margin is metric for benchmarking one company against similar companies with the same industry. A lower ratio means it is not sufficient to generate the cash, so the company must find other sources of cash. The purpose of the net profit margin is fundamentally shows the profitability of the company and serves as predictor of a firm to default on loans. A lower ratio means not really efficient. It makes the company hard to survive when a product line doesn't meet its expectation. The purpose of the return on asset, it helps to determine how efficiently a company uses its asset. A lower ratio means this may indicate that our competitors have found ways to operate more efficiently. The purpose of the return on equity is give a company a picture of good management and financial efficiency. A lower ratio means that the management is making poor decisions on reinvesting capital in unproductive assets.
Hello, my name is Aina Najah binti Abdurrahman. Today, I want to present about 3 reasons of accepting loan application as an officer of Al-Rajihi Bank and 2-point limitation of financial ratios. As an officer of Al-Rajihi Bank, I will be accepting loan applications from Hikmat Bakti. It is because, based on profitability ratios, Hikmat Bakti Berhad can make reasonable profit on sales. For example, gross profit margin of Hikmat Bakti Berhad is 42.35%, while industry average 38%. However, Hikmat Bakti Berhad also needs to find other source because their operating profit margin is quite lower than industry average, where the difference is 3.88%. As a result, Hikmat Bakti Berhad's gross profit margin is higher, and the operating profit margin difference is modest. Hikmat Bakti Berhad can run more efficiently than the industry average. After that, based on efficiency ratios or asset management ratios, Hikmat Bakti Berhad are also higher than industry average. It is because their inventory turnover ratio and non-current ratio are higher than industry average. For example, inventory turnover ratio for Hikmat Bakti Berhad is 12.10%, while average industry is 6.5% only. So, that is a good result because Hikmat Bakti Berhad shows that the firm has strong sales and the business use non-current asset efficiently.
Accounting policies have changed. If the company's accounting standard and practices have changed, this could have a significant impact on financial reporting. The key financial indicators used in ratio analysis are changed in this situation, and the financial outcomes after the change are not comparable to the result before the change. It is the analyst's responsibility to keep up with changes in accounting policy. For limitation of financial ratios, there is inflation effect, which is if the rate of inflation has changed during any of the periods under consideration, the figures may not be comparable.
Next is limitation of the financial ratio is ratio are based on accounting figures given in the financial statement.
Next, move the ratio of inherent problem of comparability. That means company that generally comparable may use various accounting methods, which can make it difficult to compare useful strategies. Next, the utility of accounting ratios influenced by different techniques of computation. Even under identical scenarios, the different concepts used to determine the numerator denominator in certain accounting ratio will not aid in making meaningful conclusion.